You probably have heard a lot about standards, but what are they? In this module, we'll learn about standards, what they are, and how they might facilitate your work with children. In the next module, we will speak more specifically about Arizona standards and how to use them. You hear a lot about standards. Certainly we hear the term a lot these days, often in a negative sense. In this module, we will spend some time learning about standards, what they are, and what it means to work with them. In particular, we will talk about the purposes of standards in guiding children's learning, how it can provide a bridge to facilitating the learning of children you are working with, and how standards can be used to guide your instructional activities. This joint position statement provides a solid explanation of the benefits, risks, and challenges of assessing young children. You should read this statement before going further in this module. You can access the joint statement by copying and pasting the URL into your browser after pausing this presentation. Once you've read the statement, you may proceed through this module. Standards are a type of educational outcome. They specify what children should know and be able to do in a specific content area. Their purpose is to provide guidance for parents, teachers, and programs in developing meaningful instruction for children. Standards have ramifications that permeate the entire educational system. They define learning goals for children, are the basis for standards-based curriculum and instruction, and also provide a basis for assessing children's learning. Although gaining a basic understanding of standards is relatively straightforward, translating standards into practice requires significant changes in the way that teaching and learning are viewed. This does not mean that the curriculum must be scripted or narrowed, and should not mean that teachers cannot be creative in developing meaningful and thoughtful learning activities. It does mean that there is a general framework that highlights some of the major expectations for learning in specific content domains. Although standards are the ends for student learning, they represent the starting points for assessing student understanding and designing instruction. The best way to learn and demystify standards is through use. It is important to constantly reference them and apply new meanings and understanding. This will help them become second nature for you. The Joint Position Statement from the National Association for the Education of Young Children and the National Association of Early Childhood Specialists in State Departments of Education wonderfully encapsulates the conditions required so that standards can support positive development and learning. The first of these is that standards must emphasize significant developmentally appropriate content and outcomes. All areas of early development and learning, including cognitive, language, physical, social, and emotional, are emphasized in the standards. The content and desired outcomes are meaningful and important to children's current well-being and later learning. Early learning standards are not merely scaled-back versions of standards for older children. Instead, the standards are based on research about the processes, sequences, and long-term outcomes of early learning and development. Standards are linked to specific ages or developmental periods to ensure that the expectations are appropriate. And lastly, standards recognize and accommodate variations in children's cultures, languages, communities, and individual characteristics, abilities, and disabilities. This flexibility supports positive outcomes for all children. Secondly, standards will support positive development and learning if they are developed and reviewed through informed, inclusive processes. Relevant, valid sources of expertise are called on to help develop and review the standards. Multiple stakeholders are involved: community members, families, early childhood educators and special educators, and other professional groups. Once the standards are developed, they are shared and discussed with all stakeholders. Early learning standards are regularly reviewed and revised so they remain relevant and evidence-based. Third, effective standards are implemented and assessed in ways that support all young children's development. Curriculum, classroom practices, and teaching strategies support the standards by connecting with young children's interests and abilities to promote positive development and learning. Early learning standards describe the what, the content of learning and the outcomes to be expected, but they seldom describe the how, because there's no one best way to teach. Rather, they should develop curriculum, educational practices, and teaching strategies that respond to children's needs and characteristics. This also means that assessment instruments are clearly connected to important learning represented in the standards. They are technically, developmentally, and culturally valid, and provide information that is comprehensive and useful. Information gained from assessment must benefit children. Assessment and accountability systems should improve practices and services and should not be used to rank, sort, or penalize young children. The fourth essential is that there must be a foundation of support for early childhood programs, professionals, and families. Evidence-based program standards and adequate resources for high-quality programs create environments in which standards can be implemented effectively. Significant expansion of professional development is essential to help early childhood teachers and administrators implement the standards. Standards have the most positive effects if they are accomplished by respectful family communication and support. Although there is no universally accepted definition of curriculum, it is generally accepted that a curriculum is a comprehensive system that consists of 4 components: assessment, agreed-upon goals, activities, and progress monitoring. The 4 components need to be aligned with each other, and each component helps scaffold the other components. Most published curriculum and guidelines, as well as IEP, Individualized Educational Plan, goals developed to address the unique learning needs of children with identifiable disabilities do not contain all 4 components. This slide illustrates the impact of the 4 components on children. As we progress through the course, we will be addressing the various components. Today we'll be talking about the component of goals, more specifically, standards. Curriculum goals specify what children should know and be able to do. They are addressing the desired outcomes of what is done. Standards are a specific type of educational outcome that detail what children should know and be able to do in each of the content areas. What are the musts if there's going to be quality programming for young children? First and foremost, as mentioned previously, assessment must be linked directly to curriculum. So assessment should not occur in isolation. Assessment should not occur without a purpose. Rather, it should be based on the experiences that have been deliberately and thoughtfully provided to the child through the program's curriculum. It must lead to benefits for all involved. Children's learning must be enriched, parents should have a greater understanding of their child's needs and strengths, and programs should have reliable information on which to base decisions. Assessment also should reflect the diversity of communities served through programming. Information should be obtained in a manner that will ensure the child's true abilities and skills are reflected. In terms of curriculum, it's important to keep in mind and use what we know from research and practice about children's learning and development. We must consider and incorporate opportunities to further develop while addressing academic content. And we must recognize that curriculum is not static. We constantly need to reevaluate it to determine if it's helping us achieve desired outcomes. As stated earlier in the presentation, standards are not meant to be used in isolation. Rather, planned activities should be intentional and related to the standards. Keep in mind that any single activity may give you the opportunity to observe children demonstrating several different standards or concepts. And because children can develop at different rates in different areas, you should not be surprised if children demonstrate different levels of ability in different areas. Remember that assessment, standards, and curriculum are all intertwined and ideally should form a seamless system. When truly done as a part of a system, it is sometimes difficult to separate them as each facet is constantly informing the other areas. Standards are the foundation for curriculum. They provide direction for what is to be learned. Standards, curriculum, and assessment must all align to drive instruction. Each component provides an essential element to the learning process. When all 3 components are integrated into a comprehensive curriculum, children receive individualized instruction that best meets their needs. Instruction that considers their present levels of skills and knowledge and builds on those skills and knowledge to optimize their learning.